Welcome to episode 2 of the Ready for More podcast, where our guest today is Sophie Bennett, the author of Find Your Flame, Why Motivation Matters More Than Talent.
Set a goal and go for it. And so what if you miss it? If you don't set a goal and you just see what happens, then you're always going to miss.
Welcome to the Ready for More podcast, where we share success strategies and stories for women business owners, entrepreneurs who are ready for more, for yourself and for your business. I'm your host, Heather Cameron, and I'm here to help you to discover your unique path to profitability and success so you can achieve your more on your own terms. Are you ready for more? You can find today's show notes and links at www.igniteyourmarket.com/readyformore. Welcome to episode 2 of the Ready for More show. Today's guest is Sophie Bennett. Sophie's a keynote speaker and author. She's an expert on leadership and motivation. Sophie's new book, which is coming out on September 19th, is called Find Your Flame, Why Motivation Matters More Than Talent. So Sophie, welcome to the Ready for More podcast. I'm so excited to have you as my first guest.
Oh, excited to be here. Thanks, Heather.
And I would love if you could start with sharing your entrepreneurial story. If you can give us just an overview. It's so interesting from reading your bio and talking to you before, all of the things that you've done that have brought you to this point.
Well, I've tried to have jobs over the years and I've always been a bit of a square peg in a round hole. So I suppose classic entrepreneur, you're looking for a place to fit and nothing ever really did. I've done all sorts of manner of jobs that haven't lasted very long. I've waited tables. I worked for an airline for a short while. What else have I done? I've been a hotel receptionist. I've been a ski instructor, but I guess that doesn't so much count as a job because you're autonomous out there, aren't you?
It's a job.
It's a job. So yeah, I've done lots of things, but nothing ever lasted. And I guess I'm pretty unemployable, like a lot of entrepreneurs. I've got too many ideas and too many opinions about the way it should be done. And although I have moderated that over the years, and I ended up starting a business by accident. Then I bought a chain of, I bought a shop and that ended up as a chain of shops. I think that's when my entrepreneurial spirit really started to show. So yeah, pretty eclectic, and I've done a lot of changes over the years as well. I've bought and sold companies. I started a telecoms business in '95, which wasn't great, but it was right. It was very good timing for telecoms at the time. It was just after over here in the UK, we deregulated. And I didn't make much money, but it was the first time I sold a business and made all the profit on the exit.
Oh, wow.
So that taught me a lot. So yeah, I've done all sorts of things.
How long have you been doing what you consider your business now?
Okay, so my business, I guess, has its roots in everything I've ever done, in that I've been directly writing books for a living and speaking for a living for 5 years. So that's the direct answer to the question. However, I've been in sales most of my life, one way or another. I think we're always selling whatever we do. Even when I was doing the sport, and because I was a professional dressage rider for many years. When I was 20 till when I was about 34, I was doing dressage professionally. And even that, you wouldn't think that's a sales role, but actually you're performing all the time, right? So you might not be on a stage, but you're always doing a performance. It's always rehearsed. You're always trying to polish it. You're always conscious that you're selling an idea or a feeling to sponsors or owners. So in a way, I've always been selling, even when I was doing dressage. So the selling piece and the being upfront and I was doing lecture demos then a lot. So I was riding in front of audiences of 500 people with a little radio mic on. So indirectly, I've been speaking for a long time. I did Toastmasters back when I first did an office job back in the early 2000s after I retired from the horses. So I'd been training, but I hadn't really taken it seriously until I did the first book. And great lesson for anybody that's thinking about writing a book. I wrote the book came out, it was quite well received by the journalists. And then the phone started ringing. And people said to me, would you come and speak at my conference? And I thought, why on earth would they want me to do that? That's how naive I was about the connections between books and speaking. So that's really when I got started doing what I'm doing now. I think for entrepreneurs, if you have that entrepreneurial mindset and you want that freedom that gives you, you just have to be prepared. As one of my mentors said to me years ago, every time somebody asks you to do something, just nod and work out how you do it later. And it's only when you get more successful that you have to learn the opposite art, which is the art of saying no, which is quite a big shift from when you've been struggling and saying yes to everything.
What you just said was great. I think that one of the things is that through all of your experiences, you learn stuff that build up your expertise as an entrepreneur and things that you can use in your current role or your current job or your current.
Absolutely. And what's funny how things have gone full circle. One of the speeches that I give to corporates, I've just been signed by a new speaker agent in London. And the speech that she latched onto was a speech about the comparison between leadership and horsemanship. And I think I haven't done that for 20 years. I still ride as an amateur. But it's amazing how things from your past, that they appear to me to, everything I've done seems less and less wasted. It's even strange how the skiing has taken on a really huge part of my life recently, which is bizarre because I was 18 when I was a ski instructor and I'm well into my 50s. So if you'd have said to me 2 years ago about 3 years ago, if you'd have said to me when I turned 50, if you start skiing again, your life is going to completely change for the better because of it, I'd have laughed you out of the park. What a ridiculous notion. And yet I was invited onto a speaker's ski trip. Great opportunity to network, 50 other professional speakers. You can imagine getting your word in edgeways on a trip like that, right? So I go along to this ski trip and I hadn't skied for a long time. So I went to my local artificial slope for a month beforehand. And I got on the ski trip. I met some amazing people. Another lesson, you never know where you're going to meet amazing
Absolutely
people.
True.
And some opportunities came from that, but not the ones you'd expect, because you think that if you go on a speaker ski trip with bookers and speakers that you might get some gigs and get some direct business out of it. But if you've ever done any networking, Heather, you know that's not how networking works. It's always it's a referral a year later or an introduction that comes from that. And so what happened was I went skiing. I ended up skiing with some really great people who were very senior in the profession. One of them is the current keynote speaker for Google Partners. So he flies all over the world for Google and gets all their top agencies all over the globe. He's in San Diego. He's just flying back from San Diego today. It's coming for lunch on Sunday. You know, and there's amazing contacts into the tech industry that I didn't have. And Robert's actually ended up giving me some work for things that's out of his remit these days, because he really only deals with leadership inside digital agencies. So any leadership work that comes in 2 years later is funneled over to me and my business partner.
I love what you said, that all the experiences that we have, all the experiences in our life that we tend to not think about, can lead to success paths. They can lead us into something different. And they, you know, you learned from being a, not so much public figure, but a sports figure, where you have to put a show on and you have to do that. That skill set brings into where you're at today. Your leadership brings, so all of the, it's kind of what I'm hearing. And I think this is true for all women, because I think we have tons of experience that we don't think about bringing together, that you've had all these little pieces that have come together to give you the expertise that you have at this moment in time. And the opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like these things that you do and that you love, whether it be, I've got a friend who sings in choirs and has ended up having some amazing business opportunities because he sings in a choir and meets people outside his normal business environment. And the skiing's done that for me. And then last year I was on it, this year, in fact, I was on the same ski trip, and a guy was sitting next to me. Wonderful thing about skiing, if you ever want to do an entrepreneur ski trip, if anybody wants to organize it, go for it, right? If you're a networking type of person. Because the genius of it is that you're actually sitting side by side with people. You spend more time on lifts than you do on
That's
slopes.
True.
And the great thing about sitting next to somebody and having a conversation is that it's much less pressured. Whereas when you're sitting opposite somebody, you're literally eye to eye. And there's a lot of expectation in that. And I hadn't actually thought about it until I realized that the reason the relationships were so easy that started skiing is because of this side-by-side thing. You're looking at the scenery, you're not really looking at each other, but you're just shooting the breeze and chatting away. And that's a great way to connect with
Because there's no pressure. You're comfortable and you're relaxed. And you also are sharing. I know there's something powerful about sharing a passion with someone that allows you to create a bond outside of passion that you're sharing. So sharing the passion of skiing allows you to create a bond, and you're in a relaxed environment doing what you love. So then you're going to connect on a different level.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was sitting next to somebody, and because most of the people on the trip were speakers or authors or both, usually both. And they were asking what project I was on. I was telling them all about the new book that was coming out. And they said, "Oh, I love books. I've always dreamed about having a bookshop." And we got into a conversation about books and bookshops and book clubs. And I've owned the URL entrepreneurbookclub.com for years and never done anything with it. I had several URLs around a book club that I was passionate about. Books being one of the cheapest and most effective ways to learn stuff for the long term if you're in business or personal development. It's all connected. And this guy said to me, "Why haven't you launched it?" Really good question. There's always something in the background, isn't there? There's a reason why we don't do things. And the blocker for this particular one was I'd run all the numbers. I had wholesale accounts with the book distributors. I'd done most of the work, but actually it didn't make any money. So it didn't classify very well as a business because there was no direct way to quantify the cost of marketing. So because it's a low value product and you've got Amazon sitting there where people can see the cover price of the book, to actually add any value, which I wanted to do, I'm very well connected to a lot of well-known authors. So I wanted to bring authors and readers closer together. I wanted to be able to do author interviews. I wanted to be able to do a podcast potentially with well-known authors with a new book coming out. Really interesting to get close to the people who originated these thoughts. But the route to market cost, you couldn't quantify. So this guy sitting next to me looked over his shoulder at me and said, "I've got a mailing list of about 500,000 people. Do you think that might help?"
Yes.
Yes, I think it would, because then suddenly the cost of going to market was removed, which meant that it still doesn't make much money, but not everything in business is about making money, funnily enough. It's a very worthwhile topic. That once I realized that it was a lead generation thing that allowed me to both bring new people into the business and make a contribution, and it was roughly cash neutral, but it would open the doors to all the types of people I wanted to be interacting with as a business person and as potential customers, then suddenly it made sense.
And I love that, because I think I see a lot of women in being told what we should do in the marketing world, and not a lot of them spend time actually understanding the cost of what they're trying to do. So I like the fact that you said it was cost neutral, which is great. It's a lead generation, it's cost neutral, it creates connections, but more women, I think, need to think about that. They need to think about how they're investing their time and what the outcome of it is. So something that's cost neutral is, like you said, not everything has to make money, but it shouldn't be costing you more than it's bringing into your business, be it time, energy, marketing leads, whatever. It doesn't have to be monetized, but you have to recognize the cost of that. So I love that example.
Yeah, and then beyond the book club, which we haven't launched, we probably won't launch it till probably the Christmas market time, because there's quite a lot of technology that goes into the back end of delivering everything. But once it was established that its role was to create connections and talk to people, suddenly then I was able to do what we all need to do, which is prioritize my time. Because my time's quite precious. Well, all our time is precious, and we're all busy people. I'm advising a 7-figure business, which my husband started in only February this year, ironically, while I was away skiing. It grew really, really quickly. So you don't normally coach your own family. However, he did say, I need some help. So I was business coaching that business, and still am. And it's active and it's turning over a lot of money. And so that's taken some of my attention. I've got a mastermind group that I participate in. That takes a bit of time. I've got a book launch going on. I've got a new business partnership with the guy with the book club. And we've gone way beyond that, because now we're co-presenting and co-delivering leadership programs already. And we've got some very well-known clients. So there's a lot of stresses on time. So things that don't make money, even if they're hobby projects, they have to be prioritized. So they get done, but they don't take over the revenue generating activity. And that's really easy to happen. Really easy to get the stuff that you love taking all the time, and the stuff that you might like but generates revenue. I mean, I love the revenue generating side of my business, because I love speaking on stage for people. I get paid for that. I love doing leadership work. I get paid for that. But there's a lot around it that I don't love so much. I don't love invoicing. I don't love the doing of VAT returns. I don't love keeping track on the bank. I don't love getting marketing material ready and dealing with outsourcers. There's a ton of stuff I don't like to do around it. It would be very easy to bury myself in the book club. Very easy. And then pop my head up 6 months later and think, oh, wow, there's nothing in the bank.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a mistake a lot of people make. And I read a book recently called The One Thing, which has sold millions. One thing thinking, what's the one important thing you've got to do today? And one of the great quotes in that book was that the guy who wrote it, Jay Papasan, I think it is, he said, I learned the art of saying no. It's 1,000 no's to one yes. And I still don't think I do it enough.
And definitely women don't do it enough. And it's one of but no to yourself as well, I think, is an important part of that whole no. And I love what you said about having, you have to prioritize your time. And one of the things I find, and one of the things that I'll be talking about a lot on this show, is that we have these shoulds that go in our heads that tell us we should be doing this and we should be doing that. And we're not looking at the cost. So and I love the fluidity to which you grasp onto new ideas and new partners and new business, because we have to do that as entrepreneurs. But we have to have some sort of barometer, some sort of thing that says, yes, I want to do this book club. But it's not right now. It doesn't fit into all the priorities I have right now. And learning how to do that in a way that you honor your passions at the same time you honor your needs, which is to make money, to do business, and to do the stuff, let's face it, for every entrepreneur who's out there, woman, man, whatever, there's going to be a percentage of our business we don't like to do. That's just the reality of being in any job. But particularly when you're a business and when you get to the point where you can outsource what you don't like to do, that's all great, but you still need to be on top of it. Because if you outsource your invoicing and somebody's not watching your invoicing, that's a problem, right? So I think it's so important to recognize that some stuff just needs to be scheduled later. And that gives you a sense of relief when you do it. And it's like, okay, I don't have this pressure that I need to be doing that, because I know I'm going to address it, as you said, around Christmas time for you.
Yeah, I'm a great fan of lists. I've got a whiteboard behind my desk, or sort of across to one side of my desk, which if I get an idea, it goes on the whiteboard, so it's out of my head, and then at some point it will be prioritized. And I have a list that says one thing today, and the one thing today gets pulled out and that one thing gets done. And then sometimes there's room for 10 other one things, but sometimes there isn't.
I was at a networking event last night, and someone said something which is the first time I've ever heard it this way. And I think with your one thing, it goes really well with it. And he said, I have to have priorities, but priorities that are in action, which I thought was a really interesting way to look at, priority number one, the one thing has to be in action. You have to be working on priority number one. Otherwise, it's not truly your priority. And that was, I thought that was a really enlightening way of looking at.
Yeah, it's a really cool way of looking at it. There's a great quote from, I think it was a baseball coach. I can't remember who it is. I need to find it to attribute it. But who said, the definition of professionalism is doing what you love to do on the days that you don't want to do it.
And I think I always think teachers have to do that, right? They have no choice because they're in front of a class with kids and the kids need them and they can't. I think that's one of the hardest jobs because you have to be there all the time. It's kind of like your equestrian out there, but as a teacher, you've got to be there 9 to 5. So they definitely have perfected that because they have to do that.
Yeah.
I have a question. How does your gut play in your business success? How much do you rely on your own instincts and your own gut?
More and more as I get more self-confident, and self-confidence is a really interesting thing. It's not about arrogance. It's not about pretending that you're okay when you're not. Self-confidence is, I think when it really develops, is self-trust. When you start to trust yourself, you start to listen to your gut more. I always listen to my gut on people. The only mistakes I've made with potential business partners or in business deals, business dealings, is when I've gone against my gut. There was somebody that was mentoring me 3 or 4 years ago who was extremely skilled, but there was just something about this guy that I wasn't comfortable with. He's very successful, still very successful, but there were some very questionable moral judgments that were made around some of the people in that organization, which I learned a huge amount. One, to trust my gut, and B, not to do business or work with people whose values I didn't align with. And that taught me an important lesson. Values increasingly play a part. And my new business partner, I very actively stated as an intention at the end of last year that I wanted a business partner. And interestingly, my husband has a business partner for me. He's in a completely different business. He's in a construction staffing industry. But in this industry, as a speaker, we tend to be, authors and speakers, we do tend to be quite solo. You know, the nature of the beast is that you're on your own up there on stage most of the time. You're on your own when you're writing a book. However, very few speakers only write or speak. And it's quite a lonely business. I think entrepreneurship is quite lonely because the minute you start to take full responsibility for things, you become successful. And most people I see, I mean, I run a mastermind group as well as participating in a very senior one. I also run one for entrepreneurs that are coming up through. And the biggest thing I see is people that aren't ready yet to take full responsibility for their outcomes. And they think they are, but it's a process, not an event. You don't suddenly wake up one day taking full responsibility. You wake up one day taking a bit more than you took yesterday, to not make the excuse why something didn't happen or why you're not having enough sales because you didn't pick up the phone enough. You know, you only made 10 calls when you needed to make 12, or whatever it happened to be. So that responsibility thing, once you decide to take it, you become successful because you become fully accountable for everything that happens in your own business.
That's a really interesting observation because I do agree with you as a business coach and working with women entrepreneurs. I don't think that's the first place anybody goes. They may not even realize when they start to take that step. They may not actually think, okay, now I'm taking the buck ends here as an expression, right? I'm taking responsibility. I'm doing that. But I don't think very many entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs in particular who have come into this career as a second or third act in their life recognize that that's part of what they do, even when they do it. And many are struggling with that, of taking responsibility and realizing it's not Facebook's problem. It's not, you know, this problem or that. It's how you are managing all this stuff. So I think that's a great observation.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard. You know, I don't want to underplay how difficult that is to do. It's very, very challenging. And I see a tiny, tiny percentage of people who are prepared to do it. And they are ruthlessly self-accountable. ruthlessly self-responsible. And once you start committing to that, committing to not making excuses, committing to that responsibility, what happens, that self-trust comes across as self-confidence. And there's a huge difference. You can tell somebody that trusts themselves as opposed to is outwardly self-confident. There's an energy about them. And I believe that's what the law of attraction is really all about. Because then you start attracting. I attracted a business partner. I attracted investment. And it was that piece of taking responsibility. I interviewed a guy for the book who has been to 5 Olympic Games. He's an equestrian athlete. He's the current team silver medalist from Rio, and is also the coach of the current gold medalist from Rio and current world champion, European champion, and gold medal winner at London in 2012. And he actually won the team gold in London in 2012. And I interviewed him for the book, because a lot of eclectic people inside the book. And I asked him what kept his motivation going after his first Olympics. It's very hard to stay at the top of your game for that long. And he said the first Olympics was all about being there. The second Olympics was all about being competitive. And he said the third Olympics was, how the heck am I going to keep this going? And he said, I suddenly realized that my sponsor was not going to be there forever. My owner was not going to be there forever. And if I wanted to keep doing this, he was only in his mid-30s at that point. He said, if I wanted to keep doing this, I had to stop expecting other people to support me. And he said, I decided to be fully responsible for my future. And that's how I got this place. And that interview was conducted at his yard in Gloucestershire, which is beautiful. It's several acres, a beautiful old period house, an indoor school, horses live like kings. Everything's immaculate. You know, there's brass plates and beautiful saddles worth fortunes and horses worth fortunes. And he's earned all that. But he said there's no secret to it. It's about taking responsibility for deciding you want it and then executing everything that has to happen in order to.
And that's what Olympians have to do, right? Olympians need to do that to get to that level. Definitely.
Yeah. And he just moved it into the business sphere.
I definitely find people who have gone through sports, who have gone through the discipline of being a professional athlete or an Olympian, have so many skills they can bring into. I've seen people here, I've met professional hockey players who have done amazing in businesses because they've built discipline, they've built a desire, and they have such laser focus, right? To be an Olympian, to get a gold medal is such a laser focus. And I think entrepreneurs don't necessarily have that. And I also think women, they haven't learned to be confident to allow themselves to be successful. Like that thought of, I want to be successful, and really picture what success means for them. So they have that laser focus. I think that's something we're becoming more allowed to do that, for lack of a better word. And I think that's an important part of it. But I think those sport people have such a laser focus that I admire, and we can learn so much from that, right? It's back to your one thing, right? That one thing they want is a gold medal. And that's, if they win silver, bronze, or fourth is the worst, then they really see not getting a medal of any sort. So that's great. A slightly different topic, or how do you recharge your batteries? How do you keep yourself, charged and energized as you go through writing your book and doing your presentations and being a keynote speaker and all the other things you mentioned?
Okay, so apart from drinking a lot of coffee.
Not sure that recharges your batteries.
Keeps me going then. I have animals, and I think they're a great recharge. I live in the country, and the science says that if you have green views out of the window, you have a lower heart rate, you have lower cortisol. And interestingly, for the book, I interviewed a lady called Elizabeth Nelson, who wrote a book called The Healthy Office Revolution. And she did a PhD study that proved, because they attached heart monitors and took blood samples from people at various times of the day. She said, even looking at a green picture on the wall. So if you live in an urban environment, because not everybody's lucky enough to have a green view, but if you live in an urban environment or a dull office that you have to go to work to, put a picture of a forest or something green and rural on your desk or on the wall, it will actually lower physiologically, it will lower your heart rate and improve your blood chemistry. That's astounding. So the countryside, big for me. I've got 2 dogs. I sadly lost a dog a few days ago, which devastated the whole house, because he's been with us ever since we've been in this house for 5 years. That was tragic.
It's like losing a family member.
It's really hard. It's really hard. But, you know, you have to look at the bright side of everything. And there's all the pleasure that came from the previous 8 years, you know. And I think we have to deal with that as entrepreneurs. We have to be really good at dealing with upset and disappointment, because it's going to happen. Life's not all, however shiny, you know, we want it to look, especially if you're a speaker. You know, you have to have this veneer of confidence and success, or people won't book you. But underneath, there's hard stuff going on for everybody. You know, I've got friends, we've all had it. We've all lost people. We've got friends with illnesses or cancer. We've got, you know, sick kids or sick pets, or there's always an undercurrent. Life will never be tidy.
No, life is not tidy. I've just gone through 2 years of my parents and dealing with their health and their passing and all that. So yeah, life is definitely not tidy. And I think, but I do think that brings a strength into who we become. And I think that you know, second, third act for women as who've had their first job, they've had their kids or they haven't had kids, and they're moving into, I think we as women have such richness to offer people. As we, you know, and we don't need to retire at 55. We don't need to, remember that freedom 55, that concept? It's like, we don't need to be free. We are free, and we can choose to work until we're whatever age. My father worked till he was 84 and probably would have worked until the end if his body hadn't, you know, given out on him. And my mother's care needs changed. But this concept of retirement and just stopping work is a very,
I couldn't do it. I'd become unbearable.
And retirement only came about after the Second World War. It's not something the world has always had. And yet we strive for something that I don't think is the most healthiest for us. So when we can still work and we can still contribute, we can set our own hours in our own environment, it's quite an empowering component of that.
Oh, I totally agree. That's why it's worth doing something that you love. And one of the things that came about because of the book was I saw that the happiest people, not because successful people aren't always happy. That's a really interesting comparison for a start. Because I discovered that there were 5 different motivation types. And if you were chasing the wrong thing, then you weren't going to get fired up about what you were doing. But it was a pure sense of motivation, because there's a lot of research around this. And you asked a question about, you know, how I stay recharged. I think if you're doing what you love recharges you. You know, I do spend some downtime with the animals, but they actually spend more time, the dogs certainly spend more time at my feet when I'm at my desk than I spend walking them, by a factor of 10. I have a horse. I still have a dressage horse. That definitely recharges me, because I turn off my head when I'm riding. You can't focus on 2 things. And I still ski. So that's how I recharge on holiday. So I'm very active. I'm an active recharger, not a lie on the beach recharger.
Turning towards your book. So your book is Find Your Flame, Why Motivation Matters More Than Talent. How would you share that theme in your book with entrepreneurial women? So how does your book apply to women who are ready for more? That's the name of the podcast. So they're ready for more. They want more for themselves and for their business. How does the topic of your book flow into that?
Well, really, it's about helping people find where their skill and their enthusiasm meet, to be able to use that as a way to do what they love to work. Because here's a funny thing about doing what your biggest passion for work is, that it very quickly becomes a job. And as soon as things have to become a job, we get into that professionalism thing again. When you do what you love on the days when you don't want to do it, when it becomes a job, you have to do it when you don't want to do it more of the time than you do want to do it. Because most things, when you're forced to do them, the enjoyment goes out of it. I interviewed a lady called Dorrie Clark for the book, and Dorrie is very successful. She was a gifted student She was a presidential campaign spokeswoman in the US. She's written 3 books. She's published by Harvard Business Review. She flies all over the globe as a speaker, very, very well respected personal branding expert. And I said to Dori, you know, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay fired up? And she said, well, I always choose to volunteer things that I want to do right now, because a lot of the work I have to do right now, I don't want to do. Okay, how does that work? She said, well, let's say, she said, I write about 50 articles a month for Forbes, Harvard Business Review, Inc. magazine, and various things. And she said, the ones that have got a deadline, she said, I look at them and I never want to do them when they're on deadline. So she said, I look at all the list of ones I've promised to write, decide which ones I'm in the mood to do. And she said, it doesn't matter if it's not due for 6 weeks, that's the one I do. She said, if I do that often enough, I never have anything I don't want to do. I thought, okay, that's really clever. So she uses her mood to prioritize, but she's so far ahead of herself that she can do that. So that's about good planning, and she knows herself as a person really well. She knows that she doesn't work so well as a deadline. I'm the opposite. I'm much better when I've got a deadline. So it's finding your style of work. And in Find Your Flame, I was talking to people about their professional lives. So I interviewed scientists, I interviewed entrepreneurs. So there was one female entrepreneur who I think's got a really great story. She was selling hairdressing products out of the back of her car. She came from an entrepreneurial family, but not in that business. Her dad had a restaurant. She said, I always loved taking the money at the front of the restaurant at the end of the evening, even when I was a kid. So she said, I knew I loved that buzz of turning an experience into some cash. And then she had her child, and she found herself as a single mum. Her parents no longer had the business. There was nobody to support her, and she'd split from her partner, and she was selling hairdressing products. And she said, all I wanted was to pay my mortgage and feed my son. Didn't have any great expectations beyond that. But she really connected with people. And I met her at an awards ceremony, and when she asked me where I lived, I said to her, well, I don't think you'll know. It's this hick little town in the middle of nowhere. And she said, try me. And I told her the nearest town, and she looked me straight in the eye, and she rattled off 4 names. And it was the name of her customer in that village who used to buy her supplies, and her husband, and her 2 children, and all their birthdays, and all their ailments. And she said to me, she said, oh, but I haven't seen her for 14 years. And then she told me she could tell me that level of detail about all 300 of her primary customers. Now, Judy sold that business 11 years to the day almost from when she started it. It became the Saint-Tropez tanning brand, and she sold it for £60 million. Wow. She loved the beauty industry. She loved the people she looked after, and she had an amazing memory for names, and she never defeminized the business. She did have to toughen up when things got bigger. People weren't performing, and she said she was ruthless on her costs, but not on her people. So that's just a lovely story, because it shows that if you're passionate about the product and you care about the people, you're prepared to put the hours in. She didn't have the advantages. She didn't have any finance. She didn't even own the Saint-Tropez formula. She only owned the brand and only in the UK. So you think that was a bit of a non-starter as a business.
But I love what you said, that she didn't feminize. That's a big word. Feminize the business, because I think sometimes we feel we need to do that. And I think for women who are selling to women and to selling products to women, to keep the feminine side of it, it's okay to be feminine. It's okay to, we don't need to be gender neutral, for lack of a better word. We need to, if our clients are women, then sell to women. If our clients are women and men, then understand what that means to sell, because they do buy differently. We have a different thought, and we have a different process of doing things. So it's important to recognize that and to treat your customers like gold.
Oh, well, she told me a great story, actually. I don't know if it's in the book or not, because I did 50 interviews. So you can imagine some of people only get 2 or 3 paragraphs. Otherwise the book would be 1,000 pages long. So I've got tons and tons of amazing stories that didn't make the cut for this book. But Judy told me a story, which was, she had a phone call one day into head office, and head office sounds very grand. She said there were just 6 people with a lot of cardboard boxes and a computer and a phone, so it was nothing very glamorous. She had a phone call into head office. A lady who'd been tanned by her beautician in London, which was 2.5 hours drive away from where she was at the office, and the tan had gone wrong. And she said she asked this woman which beautician she'd been to. She told her, and she said, I remembered straight away that this woman didn't seem to be paying a lot of attention in the training room. She said, immediately I just thought, I can't have this person disappointed. She told me she's got something really important on, so she got in the car and she drove down. She fixed the problem. She retanned this lady, and it turned out that she was the costume designer on 4 weddings and a funeral.
Oh, cool.
And it was the debut of the film in Leicester Square with Richard Curtis, Hugh Grant and Liz Hurley, and huge star cast in that movie. And they've been friends ever since. But she said not only that, but she introduced her to a lot of showbiz people, and she tanned Victoria Beckham, and who at the time was huge on the international stage, right at the peak of her career with the Spice Girls. And she said that introduction only came about because of that repair job that she got in the car and helped somebody. She cared about her business and her product and her customers.
You never know where opportunity's coming from.
You never know. And the next day, Victoria Beckham the paparazzi got her coming out of a beautician's with a clear bag of her Saint-Tropez tan in the bag. And she said after that, the business went to 1 million in no time at all. And she said, really, that launched the business. And she said, if I hadn't have got in the car and driven that 2.5 hours, I would never have met the costume designer of 4 weddings. I would never have been introduced to Victoria Beckham. And she said, I would never have sold the company for what I did.
Amazing. Amazing how, stepping out of your and just doing what's there and treating people can lead to something else.
Yeah, and you never know which little things. I got on a ski lift with somebody, and I turned out I met my next business partner. And we've already got several very pretty big deals in the bag. And we haven't even started yet. We're exhibiting at business shows and keynoting together now, and potentially co-writing the next book. And so you just never know those little things. I think we tend to wait. When I was a younger entrepreneur, I used to wait for the big thing to happen. And you let the little things slip past you sometimes. And it's actually the little things that lead on to something else that turns out to be the big thing. So, I always say to people in my mentoring group, don't wait for the big thing, because the little thing could be the big thing. You just have to give it your full out. And
that's amazing advice, because there's lots of little things that you have to see what's out there. You have to see what your opportunity are is little and big and go after them. The subtitle to your book is Why Motivation Matters More Than Talent. So what advice would you give to women who are ready for more, who are holding themselves back because they don't think they have X? They don't necessarily, they want something, but they think they lack something, as opposed to really have everything they need to go forward.
Well, I think we've all got all the resources we need. What holds us back from using them is self-confidence. Listening to podcasts like this is great. Keep reading inspiring stories about people who've made it despite some of the worst circumstances. I interviewed people in the book who were in children's homes, who were abused, who were rejected by their step parents, who were adopted, who had no money, who'd been kicked out from home. And just every heartbreaking story you can imagine is in there. And from some very surprising, successful people. I think we hold ourselves back when we think we're waiting for other people's approval. And if we don't get it, particularly that's a real woman thing. We want people to approve of us at every stage. And it's having external validation. You'll never get it, because the people that really want you to do well, it's often in conflict with their own performance. So you get a very mixed message from people, often from the people closest to you, actually, who say, I really want you to do well, I just want you to be successful. But actually, they also they're holding a fear that because they haven't held themselves accountable and they haven't been as successful as they'd like, and they'll just drop a little seed of doubt in. Oh, but I don't want you to get hurt. Don't do that. I don't want you to lose everything. And then if they put their own fears on you, you have to have this wall of resilience. Your self-confidence actually comes from setting really strong boundaries, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think entrepreneurship isn't necessarily understood when we do that. Like, what do you do with your time? Or you could be really good at this. Well, I'm really good at what I do already. I don't need to be really good at anything else. I have a quote here that was on your business page. So even though you haven't released your book, you have been publishing some quotes. And I thought this one was really appropriate for our audience. Is we often find hesitation, doubt, and procrastination. We step back from the edge of greatness and go back into the safety of our comfort zone. And I think that's so true. So we have hesitation, doubt, and we procrastinate, and we step back. We go small instead of stepping into our greatness. And I think that's a wonderful quote.
We step back from it constantly because we fear that we're not good enough, or we feel that we'll let people down, or the biggest people we let down when we don't step forward is ourselves. And set a goal and go for it. And so what if you miss it? If you don't set a goal and you just see what happens, then you're always going to miss.
I love that, because you're right. If you don't have a target, if you don't have some place that you're passionate, it goes back to the one thing, to have that one focus and that one thing, and to set that target. And if it doesn't go where you expected it to go, it could go someplace wonderfully and unexpected, or it could be a miss. I did a whole website and a whole project on something about 4 years ago, did trade shows, and it was a miss because I didn't understand how stuck that particular area was in, and I was coming in to be a disruptor. And if I did it now, I would have done it completely differently, but at the time I didn't have the knowledge I had now, and it didn't work out, and I stepped back, and that's okay, and I moved on to the next thing. And I think that's shooting and missing is better than not shooting at all.
Absolutely. And you have to be comfortable enough to pivot as well. If something's not working, stopping something can be even harder than starting something.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all this. There's tons of nuggets and golden wisdom in here. I have 3 parting questions for you. The first one is, what would you consider your superpower to be?
Determination, grit and determination.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like that.
That ability to say, right, this is going to happen and nothing's going to get in the way.
Good. And I don't know if you have one of these in mind, but what's your favorite quote? Do you have a favorite quote that you use, or a favorite?
Yeah, it would. Yes, for this podcast, it would be a woman one, which is an Eleanor Roosevelt quote, which is, a woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until you put her in hot water.
I love that. I've never heard that one before. I love that one. That's excellent. And the last one is, what's the most important message you'd like women who are ready for more as entrepreneurs? What's the most important message you'd like to give them as a takeaway?
It's about personal boundaries and developing your self-confidence. And other people can't give that to you. You have to take it. You have to decide what you want, and you have to commit to it. And you have to be prepared to take feedback and say thank you, and not let it damage who you are. Feedback is not a knock to your identity. It's just a knock to your skills. And we can all get more skilled, but we're all good enough already. We might not be skillful enough, but we're all good enough people already. Don't need to be somebody else.
Where can our listeners find your book, find out more about you? I know your book is coming out in a couple of weeks now, which is very exciting.
Yeah, and it's already available for pre-order on Amazon.
And by the time this goes to air, your book will probably just be coming out. So,
yeah, perfect. You can find the book on Amazon, and it's called Find Your Flame: Why Motivation Matters More Than Talent. And I love to connect with listeners as well. So if anybody's got any questions, or wants to ask about anything they've heard on the podcast, then feel free to connect with me. It's just really easy. Sophie at sophiebennett.com. I'm sure you put that on the show notes.
I will put it in the show notes for sure.
And I love that when people reconnect. I had an email yesterday from somebody I did some speaker coaching for 4 years ago at somebody else's speaker coaching event. And I coached probably 200 people through a series of exercises that weekend, but it made an impact. And sometimes you just say one thing. I remember Brian Tracy had a tape I used to listen to in the car 20 years ago, really made an impact on me. And you never know. So I'd love to connect with people if it's made an impact or something I've said has resonated and they want to tell me about it. I always love to hear that. I read all my emails.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely put it in the show notes. I'll put a link to your book on Amazon and your website as well and your social media. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your experience. And
it's been my pleasure.
Wonderful nuggets out there for women entrepreneurs to really step into that and stay focused on the one thing, and just been great. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ready for More podcast. You can find today's show notes and links at www.igniteyourmarket.com/readyformore. My name is Heather Cameron. I'm your podcast host. And when I'm not hosting this podcast, I'm busy working with entrepreneurial women like you who are ready for more in their business and are looking to get focused on their own unique path to success. You can find more about myself and my programs at www.igniteyourmarket.com. If you like what you heard, feel free to rate, review, and share with your friends. And don't miss an episode by subscribing. Until next time, remember, now is the best time to focus on your more and be inspired by your own unique gifts.